Hi, this is Chris, and today I want to talk about mental health in the chess community. So first of all, I just want to express my condolences to Daniel Naroditsky's family and friends, who must be undergoing a lot of grief and pain at the moment. As I talk about this sensitive topic, I want to add a disclaimer that these are my own views, and I don't have all the facts. This is just my perspective about a very complicated situation. So first of all, this moment didn't happen overnight, and I'm sure there was a lot of momentum building in Danya's life. So I want to talk about some of the dynamics that might be less well known in situations like this. So first of all, I want to introduce the idea of unbearable feelings. So I'll just write this out here. So an unbearable feeling is a hideous emotion. When you were overwhelmed when you were younger by some event, by some circumstance, that feeling that overwhelmed you, your brain labels that and relegates it to a "I never want to experience that again" category. And it becomes the rest of your life mission to avoid that feeling because it feels so threatening to your basic sense of survival. Now, common unbearable feelings include things like rejection or disappointment. And in trying to avoid these feelings, we often crash into other people. And you can tell somebody is experiencing one if they're often very angry, or if they're crying, or if they've completely shut down. Now, in the case of Daniel, what I've noticed is that he seemed to be very allergic to feeling disbelieved or unheard, maybe even misunderstood. And the thing is, we all have an ingrained, hardwired need for a sense of innocence. To function healthily, we need to feel innocence. Nobody likes the feeling of guilt that comes from being judged. And we can't escape judgment. We're judging each other, we're judging ourselves all of the time. It's a universal thing that occurs 24/7. But the thing is, in Daniel's case, he was being publicly accused. And these accusations weren't fully evidence-based. And Daniel, in his ethical and sensitive nature, was trying his best to defend his honor, to protect his innocence. The problem is that with such a big public platform, he was stuck between a rock and a hard place, because in trying to defend his innocence, he was getting repeatedly pushed towards his unbearable feelings of being disbelieved and unheard. So, for somebody, this feeling is just merely unpleasant because it's not their unbearable feeling. But for Daniel, it seemed like this consumed him. There was an intensity to him trying to set the record straight. And it's very understandable. So, this feeling would have been like him being pushed closer and closer towards the edge of a cliff. And yeah, that really would not have been healthy at all. So let's look at chess. Chess is obviously competitive. Competition means basically you're purposely hiding the options available to you in order to conform to the rules of the game, which creates a life or death perspective. That's what competition requires. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't try. There'd be no point to bother. So these self-imposed limits are what qualify you to play. You can't sit down at a chessboard, realize your free will, and then just walk off randomly. Often you have to conform yourself to the limits that are agreed, whether that's time or the finishing of the game. So the thing is, this mindset is good within a game, but as soon as it starts growing outside of the game into the rest of your life, then you'll find yourself walking on a tightrope. And the problem is, this tightrope could feel like you're 1,000 feet above shark-infested waters. And psychologically, the tightrope should only be reserved to the game environment. A better way to understand a healthy mindset in your life is to think of your life more like a playground. So in a playground, you can go over to one part of the playground and just play there for a while. Maybe there's some bars, maybe you want to go over to a swing. The choice is yours, and it's not crucial. Because in a game, it feels like a tightrope, because all the steps you make do have a sense of life or death. There is a sort of crucial factor to them, where mistakes are immediately costly. So, understanding this difference helps you to keep the balance right. If life is a playground, then you can play in different parts, and it's not crucial. You can fail, you can make mistakes, and it's not costly in the same way that it would be in the confines of a game. And so this brings us to perception. To your brain, perception is reality. But that can lead to some problems. Because like this quote says, there are no hopeless situations, only people who have become hopeless about them. Your perceptions and your feelings can be dead wrong, but if you have no mechanism or technique by which to fight these, then you can come to a conclusion that is destructive, that is based on a false idea of reality. And that means you can feel trapped. But the thing is, your feeling of being trapped is a feeling. It's not a reality. The problem is your brain is very persuasive, and it can lock you into that feeling if you have no tools by which to confront and challenge your conclusions about your situation. And so it's also important to realize that if you're sensitive in the way that Danya seems to be, then you probably have a lot of empathy. And empathy is a double-edged sword, because in life with other people, your empathy can be the way you connect. You can establish rapport. And from everything that I've heard, Daniel was somebody who got along well with everybody. He was well liked across the board. The problem is that rapport is one side of empathy. The problem is your empathy can be the very thing that sucks you into somebody else's torment. If they're experiencing emotional insecurity, they can use your empathy to suck you into their perception of reality. Their perception of reality can be dead wrong, but if you're not aware of your own identity, then you can be pulled into other people's torment, into their crazy world. Their perspective of what's correct can start changing and twisting what you believe is real. And so you can, in a very real way, lose a sense of what's up and down, of what's right and wrong. So you need to stay safe around people who have toxic opinions and traits and behaviors. And the only way that you can do this is with truth, is with insight. So, in terms of an unbearable feeling, you have to learn to downgrade it from unbearable to merely unpleasant. You have to learn to talk back to yourself in a way that says, this is not unbearable, this is merely unpleasant. Yes, I don't like this, but this is not permanent. This feeling of despair is not permanent. And you have to stay objective. You have to stay matter of fact. Your feelings are not good guides. They can tell you about the past, but they can't tell you about your future. And this is a real fight. So I hope this is useful, and I hope that as this community evolves, it can learn to take mental and emotional health very seriously, because the fact is, where can you go to escape your mind? If you can't go anywhere to escape your mind, then please learn how to make it your friend. And how do you make it your friend? By telling yourself the truth. Keep your options open and realize that life is not a do-it-yourself. It's a team game. So in the isolated world of your individual efforts on the chessboard, remember that you're part of a network, a community, that there is help, that there are options you can't see right now, that your perspective isn't hopeless, that you're not stuck. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope we can all keep growing together and keep learning.